Record. Hello, beautiful Brian.
Hello, beautiful Haley. How are you? I,
I'm
I,
good, thank you.
I just love you in blue. It's just,
Thank you.
yeah, it's really beautiful.
I was
Oh,
mentioning to you that I feel like I'm still in this like haze of having work done. Well, I worked with one of my healers yesterday. So I'm kind of like, I feel like whenever I have that kind of work or have those kind of conversations, there's like this special glow that happens for like a little while until you come back down to earth and you integrate it all. So I feel like I'm still in that bubble.
and you don't really want to let go of it.
Um, it's an interesting place because you kind of want to let go of it because it's almost like, come on, get back to life.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's almost like, nah, you guys carry on doing it for me.
Yeah, I've had those kind of experiences in my life. Uh, You know, at some point I'm ready to have it stop because I realize that I've taken in a lot. I don't want to overload.
Right.
But I need to re-enter, but do so wisely, gracefully, right?
It's an interesting thing because I think it's connected to the topic that I wanted to talk about today, which is
Good. Good.
gratitude and
That,
resentment.
oh, those are good.
So my the genesis of this is I have become really, really busy since coming to San Cristobal. It feels like everything kind of just clicked, and everything that I've been praying for and trying to manifest is now coming into the physical. And
Great.
so, been such a wonderful, busy week to the point now where it's Thursday and I'm like burnt out.
Mm,
And to be able to say I've had enough, but stay in gratitude
hmm
versus, well, it's all coming to me, so I need to keep it coming and keep going and say, please come more. But that kind of ends in resentment.
It does.
So that's what I wanted to talk about today.
Yeah, that's really good. And in my experience, I don't resent myself. I resent the client that I'm about to go work with. How do they not know my schedule is so busy? And of course, it's not their problem at all. They didn't ask you, you know, they said, "Are you free at this time?" And you said yes.
Yes, and I usually really like once I have the call with client, I love it and I'm
Me too.
energized.
Yeah.
But I find myself like in that space of like, I just need some free time. Can I have some free time? And I tend to have those conversations mostly with like God and sort of my soul. Like, I'm really grateful for all of this, but did we have to
Mhm.
do it like back to back? And then I have to remember that, like, remember how you wished you had back to back meetings.
Yes. And
Be
there's a
careful of
part
what
of
you wish for.
and there's a part of it that feeds the ego that
Mhm.
says I'm a success and I wanted to believe that I could be a success. And then there's the part that says I'm not taking very good care of myself.
Exactly. And that's where it's almost to the point now like, okay, do you withdraw and say, I'm taking self care time? And then feel that sort of obligation that other people were counting on you.
hmm Haley, what I did when I realized that I was overwhelmed with my calendar, I think I told you last week, I'd look at my daily calendar and see, week after week, of obligations. So I said to myself, okay, you know what? From now on, you're going to block 1 week out and not accept any invitations. Just say
Right.
you're tied up. And, if they want you, that's fine. They'll find a date. But you need to 1 week a month chill, be at home, do your billing, dust, do laundry, go out to dinner with Ray. Yeah, I needed that. And so I recommend if you haven't done that for yourself, that you block out some time. I know you're doing it with us, which is great. I'm really proud of you that we're going to block off times that you just can't, do the podcast. But do you have anything like that in mind?
So this is where I'm learning. It's a
hmm
learning curve for me because I am a workaholic.
hmm
And I find that I am energized by working, but then there's that tipping point where I'm burnt out.
Yeah.
And it's literally like a 15-minute tipping point. I'm energized and then I'm boom.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So, and it's been interesting for me because as part of my transition coming out of corporate and into self-employed and defining what success is, what work is, what my routine is, the last, well, maybe one of the last pieces of that is trying to figure out when is your time off.
Mm-hmm.
Because I love my work and I never wanted it to feel like I needed time off from it. So
Mm-hmm.
there's a little part of me that feels like a tiny bit of a failure that
Mm.
I need time off from something I love.
And trust the voice. The voice is your soul saying, knock,
Absolutely.
knock, knock, knock. Is anyone home? I need some time with you, Haley.
Yeah. And
I'm
it's,
willing to pay your fee too, if you'll just.
if not, I'm going to make you pay. It's a very interesting thing that I've experienced this week because, following on from the dating, I've had this one guy that we're kind of dating, I guess.
Uh-huh.
I don't know what the definitions are there. That's for
Yeah.
like next month to define.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
But he has been wanting to see me, and I've been like very sort of my boundary there is much easier where I'm like, listen, dude, I'm done. I've worked till 8 o'clock tonight. There's no movie in me.
Right.
And I don't want to see another person. And I've noticed that like now Thursday comes along, he's not even reaching out. And I'm like,
Uh,
do I reach out? Or is this still me holding my boundaries where I'm like, listen, I told you I had a busy week. So it's an interesting line of balance where it's like, I want to be a part of it all. I want to be grateful for it. I want to be accepting and receiving, but being confident in saying that's enough for now.
mhm. Yeah. But and what I feel in listening to you is that your definitions are changing. You had a definition of success when you left corporate world. My guess is that that has shifted a bit since you've been doing this for a while. You see success differently,
Mm-hmm.
perhaps define it differently.
Yeah.
And I think you're in a wonderful but stressful period of making decisions to protect yourself, socially and professionally.
Yeah. And I think the silos tend to disappear because it's no more socially and professionally, it's me. Do you know what I mean?
Mhm.
So it's protecting me with all
Yep.
these things where my energy goes.
And people are counting on you eh, to have energy when you work with them, right?
And when I'm around them, because it's really important for me that when I am around anybody, they get the best of me.
Mm-hmm.
So whether I'm going to the gym or I'm going to go meet a friend, they get the best of me. They don't get tired Haley or Haley that just needs to be quiet and sits at the table and the other person plays on their phone and I'm totally fine with that. They get vibrant, full on Haley.
Yeah.
So
I
there's
yeah. Haley, you are happy. You and I, it's like, an echo. I'm hearing an echo. But
so when I pull back, I do
yeah,
because I'm like, I know that if I hang out with you or if I go do this, you're getting 40%, and that's not who I am.
yeah, yeah. And not only that, but when I'm with you, my intention was to recharge, and you're preventing me from charging. And I don't know why I said yes to this. I wish that I had gone on a long hike by myself.
Totally, totally. And again, there it's so easy to go from gratitude of I'm so grateful that I have this time with this person and that there's this connection to resenting the time because you're like, oh my God, it's still 30 minutes before I go home.
Yeah, yeah. And I need to prepare for my next client.
Yeah, it's
Yeah.
an interesting thing. I was checking Instagram today and I follow Krishnamurti Foundation and he was speaking about attention and he very much is his philosophy seems very simple. When you're with something, it's 100% attention. You don't multitask, you don't look around. You're 100% attentive to that person, and they're 100% attentive to you. And that's what he considers a heart connection.
Mm-hmm.
And he mentioned this, and it was in front of a live audience, and they all started laughing. And he's like, I don't know why it's so hard. It's very simple. You just focus on one thing at one time. And I think as a society, when we define success by how many things can you do at one time.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Attention isn't really attention anymore. It's not
Mm-hmm.
absolute.
We're waiting for people to say, "You're amazing."
Yeah.
You know, you're
You
amazing.
do so much.
And do it well. You know?
It's
Yeah.
fascinating.
And they'll say, how do you do it? And the answer is it's me. It's just, this is me. I have to do it. I have to. It keeps me focused, to write the book, to call the client, whatever book. And but it's upon me, because no one will take care of us but ourselves.
Indeed.
Even if you're in a relationship, Ray has to take care of himself. He can't be watching me all the time to make sure that I'm getting the rest I need, or I'm, pulling, I'm getting time he doesn't look, that's not part of his job. That's my job.
And I think we need to really come back to that in terms of, we are our greatest teachers. We are our greatest healers. We have people that can help us and give us the tools, but ultimately it comes down to us to use the tools.
And the tools are what?
I think meditation is a huge tool.
Yep.
Being present, like fighting for presence, rather than being in the past or the future, or worrying about, like, if I say no to this client, will this be the last client I ever have?
Mm-hmm. But you say, I'm just here.
I'm just here. And right now, what I need is quiet.
Mm-hmm. To be present.
To be fully present, and to be first present with myself before somebody else.
Because you can't be present to the moment if you have any thoughts.
True.
Right? The way you're present to the moment is through your senses, right? What do I see? What do I smell? What do I hear? And if there's noise that, in journalism, years ago, we were taught that there's the encoder, that's the person sending the message, and the decoder, the person that's getting the message. And if there's any noise in between the two, right, it stops communication.
So
right?
True.
Right. So there are a lot of things that become noise in being present. We start getting distracted. It's okay, but just know you're doing it. Know that, you're not wanting to be present to the moment, right? You're choosing to live in the past or the future.
True. And a lot of the time it is the past, because all of that noise triggers the memories of the past.
Yeah.
And how is that going to happen in the future? So what do I need to do now to prevent that?
And there's nothing wrong, in thinking about the past. Ray and I, in not being obsessed about it, not thinking you can change it, but reflecting on it. This morning when we lit our candle and cone of incense, we did it for all the people in our lives who influenced us, in a positive way. And you didn't need to create an exact scenario. You just said their name in your mind, and that felt so good, but they're gone, right? They've influenced this right now. Maybe one day someone will say, I was part of that group for them, right? But my job is to not think about that in the future. It's to be present right now with Haley Evans.
And I think very often we think we need to resolve the past.
Mm-hmm.
We need to analyze it and fix it and close out the past, like get closure. And if we're doing that, we're living in the past. And it's completely untrue, because we're taking information that we have today and trying to change the past, which is impossible. The idea
not
of
only,
time machines and Back to the Future,
right,
it's a movie.
yeah, Haley, not only is it a waste of time, but it's a waste of my time if I'm trying to have your attention.
Mm-hmm.
And you're in the past working on creating, healing something. Now, that's not going to happen in this situation of the podcast, but if you and I were a couple and I kept feeling like you wanted to be in therapy constantly to work out the issues you had with your mother, that's time that I don't get.
True. And yeah, time is, we think money is so valuable, but time is valuable. It's the
Mhm.
one thing we don't really control, and it's the one thing we completely underestimate.
Yes. Yes. And there are many, many, many super wealthy people who have never been in the moment.
Never been in the moment. And they keep seeking time. They keep trying to buy time.
Yes. If I fly to Paris tonight for dinner, I'm going to be happy.
Yeah.
And the whole flight over, they're deal making or, thinking about, well, what's going to happen after dinner? You know,
And it's interesting that you mentioned that, because when I was in corporate and I traveled a lot and I traveled business class, and I remember being there going like, these are going to be things I never, ever, ever forget. And guess what? Today I'm like, oh, I completely forgot that even happened.
yeah. Yes, because it's unimportant.
It,
It's important at the time,
it's
you know.
important at the time, but
Yeah,
their lifelong memories are an illusion.
they are. I'm one who will look at them through rose-colored glasses. Right. So all I really do, even with people who hurt me, is I figure out a way to think about it, forgive and offer love, and then suddenly, oh, they were really good people, and they did their best, but it is my construct.
Mhm.
My memories of my mother, my father, my grandmother, the people whose pictures are on my shelf who have all died, they're my construct. They lived, they had their own lives, but I've created what our relationship was.
And I think that comes back down to the tools. The past is a tool. All of these people are tools
Mm-hmm.
and ultimately it comes down to the decision of who are you going to be and how are you going to use these tools to be the best version of you.
Mm-hmm. And Haley, I've learned that one way of being in the moment, as you do reflect on the past and its influence on the moment, is to write. Right. So you're physically using your hand touch, you're seeing, right? Rather than saying, oh my God, let me list all the people. You write it down, and you can't be anywhere but the moment as you do it, right? Because if you're not in the moment, your hand's going to be all over the page.
Well, it's writing is so important from the way that I work. I always require my clients to have a pen and a journal. They have to
Oh,
use their own hands and they have to see their own handwriting,
good for you.
because there is an energetic thing that happens whenever we hear our own voice or whenever we see our own handwriting. We will always attach and believe it far more than anybody else's handwriting or anybody else's voice. So being able to write those things down, your mind takes it far more seriously than if I were to write you something and say, these are the people that you need to pay attention to.
Yes, exactly. Uh, yeah, exactly. And then come back to it.
Yeah, it's
You know,
very, very important to keep the skill of handwriting.
yeah, which we've talked about. The kids today can't read it.
And their writing is
Everything is block letter now,
all
which is
type.
or type. Yeah, and the typing, the block lettering resembles the type.
Yeah.
Uh, so we have to remind ourselves, who are we sending this note to, and will they be able to read it?
And where is the responsibility there? So you were talking about, like in journalism, how there was the encoding and the decoding.
Yes.
And I think it's important to really get clear on where that line of responsibility shifts. And one of the things that I always do, I did this even when I was in banking, when I was about to write an email, regardless of who it was to, I always got very clear about the intention of the email and how I wanted people to feel when they received the email.
Yes,
And
good.
then right before I hit send, I would come back to intention and be like, no matter what's in this email, I hope people receive it with openness and clarity.
Oh, that's good.
And it's something I've always done now, but there is that fine line between where we take on responsibility for how the message is decoded.
Yes, and then we have to let go, right? Because we can't control how they decode it.
How do you deal with that as an author of books? When people come to you and say, I know exactly what you were talking about here, and they go into their interpretation of it, and then do you sit back and be like, that was not at all what I was talking about?
No, I may say that to myself, but I'm really interested in what they're saying about what they remember. And Haley, it's so funny you mentioned this, because it's come up a couple times in the last few days, people saying, you put into words what I can't say myself, right? And I'm grateful for that feedback. But when I write, like you, the intention, and it's automatic, it's not thought through, the intention is that what we're saying is going to help. It's first of all, it's truthful. We're telling the truth when we tell our story, right? To the best of our ability, what is true. There's a positive intention, as you said before sending the email, and then I have to let go of it, right? Because now it's in the book, and they've bought the book or not, and then say, oh, the same thing happened to me. I mean, if it's outrageous, I say, well, that's not what I was talking about. Yeah. It's so, I know you know this in your own work, but in my work, there's nothing more satisfying than to have somebody tell me that something I wrote touched them and had a positive influence. Nothing compares to that.
Do you think that's ego or heart?
Heart. It's not about my ego. I tell people, Haley, that talking about Francis of Assisi, I said, the universe is going through me as a channel. This stuff is coming from more than this head and heart. I'm channeling. And so let's all give gratitude for the universe. I mean, it's nice. You have moments, where the ego says, hey, this is mine. All right. Take it for a bit, but we're not going to run far.
Yeah. I, like you, when I have those moments, it is very heartfelt and it is very thankful. Like, I immediately go into thank you for letting me be this person.
Absolutely.
And I think that's how you know it's the heart.
Yeah. And Haley, almost every message I get, I start with thank you in my response, even if their whole message was, I don't know, about me or about them, or I thank them for the time they took to write. But I don't spend any time on the compliment, right? I focus more on them. That's what I care about, is them. I'm grateful for the compliment. Maybe I'll think about it sometime later in bed and take satisfaction from it. But you've got 100% of my attention right now, whether it's an email, a phone call, whatever it is. What is it that I can do for you? How can I help?
And I think that highlights very clearly the energetic bond between all of us, because the attention is not just when you're in front of somebody.
No.
The attention is whenever you're thinking about them, when you're sending an email, when you're on the phone with them, when you're on a video chat, when you're actually in person with them. The attention and the intention to attention is the same.
Yes.
And I think that comes down to energy. That's acknowledging that we have this energetic bond regardless of how far apart we are.
And that's mind-blowing, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. That's every day.
It is. And it's not just humans that have this bond with. It's nature. It's the dog, the cat, whatever.
I have a funky story for you.
Good, good.
Which is totally energetic and really delves into that world of psychicness, which it's energetic, and quantum worm theory, whatever we want to call it today. So I have, for entertainment purposes, sometimes to help me relax and just come down, I will watch one or two of the YouTube horoscope readers or like tarot readers.
Oh.
And one of them was reading my sign and was like, it's entertainment. Like, to get a proper reading, you need to be present with that person. More information is required to get a more accurate reading. But sometimes things happen.
Mm-hmm.
So this one reader was, you're going to, like, for, I think, the rest of August, she was saying, you're going to be, like, as a Capricorn, Spirit is going to be very much trying to communicate with you and let you know that they're with you. And she was like, one of the ways is going to be a white butterfly. And I was like, nice, but I usually see white butterflies. And then she was like, it's going to be in a place where you wouldn't expect to see a butterfly. So yesterday, and I take this information, but subconsciously it's stored somewhere.
Yeah.
I don't actually write it down and say, did this happen today? Yesterday, I was at the gym. There was a white butterfly in the gym.
Oh, no kidding.
Yeah. And I was just like, my God, we live in a miraculous world.
Yeah. Whether or not it's coincidence doesn't matter. I choose to believe that we're connected, right? When we die, one of the things that becomes clearer to you as you age, one of the things that can become clearer to you as you age, Haley, is you make a choice in terms of what you believe about the end. And it doesn't matter. It shouldn't change your behavior, but you either choose to believe there's a God and that there is a universe that you're going to reconnect with, or you choose to not believe that. And I get meaning in my life out of that.
Right.
What are you looking at?
I'm trying to switch off my phone. And I kept
I understand.
The fingers aren't working. So every time I try to put it on silent so it doesn't vibrate, it went back up. And I'm like, get down. And I've cut my finger because I tend to.
Just now?
No, I cut it almost every day because I use a blender, and then I clean the blender, and in the blender, I cut myself almost every day.
And you have a blended meal for breakfast?
It's usually my main meal of the day.
Oh, no kidding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, which has got to get better.
Wow.
I usually have maybe 2 meals a day, and just because I don't really cook for myself, unless I really am in the mood for cooking, and then once I've cooked, I'm not even hungry for it. But the blended meal, the smoothie, is the most nutrition, the most everything I can pack in. So when it'll last me the day, it's a pretty loaded smoothie, and it lasts probably 4 to 6 hours. And I know with that I'm getting a nice chunk of nutrition.
So you drink it throughout the day?
It's
Okay.
loaded.
Okay.
It's literally got the kitchen sink in it.
Yeah. So it's not just I had it for breakfast real quickly and then moved on.
No, it's honestly too heavy to have at one time because I think if when you do the loaded smoothies like that, if you drink them at too much, your body has no idea. Your body can very easily go into this is way too much nutrition. It's like too much eating too much.
I think I could do that with a chocolate milkshake.
Well, I have been on a chocolate spree.
Have you?
It's a there's a wonderful place here called Jangala, and they do cacao, and it's all fair trade sourced, all organic, and they're very proud of their story. So if you go into their store, they show how they source the cacao and all the different stages of it, from the actual fruit all the way down to a bar of chocolate. Um, and they do really amazing cacao, like powdered cacao with reishi mushrooms in it. It's delicious.
Haley, cacao and cocoa are the same,
Same. Yeah. So
but they're,
cacao is more of the unprocessed form. Cocoa would be the processed form.
I see.
Yeah, they're like roasted and powdered and like ready to drink or put it in a cake or something.
That it's cocoa then.
Yeah. Yeah. And I
That's
think
fascinating. That's fascinating.
here the English way is cocoa, the Spanish way is cacao, and the
Okay.
Mayan is cacao.
Okay.
But yeah, chocolate is delicious.
One of the funny things about aging is hearing and what you think you hear people say, and then you say, "I'm sorry, could you say that again?" Because what you said makes no sense to me at all. And then I can't even remember what it was you said. What was it?
What were we even talking about? Because now I'm trying to decipher one word.
Right. You have to laugh. If you don't laugh, you'll be miserable.
There's a wonderful Matt Kahn says that comedy is the hilarity of life. We need
You-
to life is comedic.
Okay, so do you go out of your way to watch comedy?
No, I can't watch it.
Yeah.
I'm not, I'm a, I don't have anything against it. I was actually having a conversation with our lovely Bill Glenn the other day about whether we turn off when we're not working. And we both came to the conclusion there's no turning off. And whenever I watch comedy, I go into I read too much.
Okay.
It's
So does that,
very
so,
rare to find a comedian that is not hurting.
do you watch television or Netflix or whatever?
I do. I watch it. Most of the time it's background noise.
Okay.
And there's a few yeah. I watch it, but most of the time it watches me, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so you're not pinned to it. You don't sit in a chair and stay the whole time and focus.
No, if that's happening, then I'm probably not feeling very well. I'm like feeling a bit ill. But even
Okay.
then yeah. I'm not a binge watcher. I can do maybe 2 hours maximum, whether it's a movie or a show. Two
Uh-huh.
hours is my max to watch something.
Okay.
And even in that 2 hours, my attention's maybe 40 minutes.
Let's go back if we can, before we run out of time, to the two words that you wanted to focus on today. And all of what we've been saying is related. One is gratitude, right? And the other is resentment.
Mm. And the
Uh,
fine line between them.
uh-huh. Yeah, I catch myself when you open a door for somebody and they just walk through and say nothing. You know, I have to remind myself that you don't say, you don't speak English.
Or you're welcome.
Yeah. that's, I can't, I've done that and I'm not proud of it, because I held the door because I wanted to, not because they asked me to. And whether or not they acknowledge it should be irrelevant because it was a gift.
I think, I don't know who says it. It may be a Buddhist saying, but the greatest kindness is the one that goes unsaid.
Mhm. Oh, well, I can relate to that.
And I think, again, it's such a fine line because I can be all love and light.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
if I'm on the street and somebody like doesn't share the sidewalk, I'll be the
Yep.
first one to be like, you dick.
Yes. Well, me too. I mean, I think we have to have that, a little bit of that in us.
A little feistiness, a little spice.
Yeah, rather than, praise the Lord. I'm glad you pushed me off the sidewalk.
And I early on when I first came to San Cristobal, I'd made friends with a therapist. She was a therapist in the US, but just visiting here. And she was always working, and I could always tell that she was trying to analyze me. And I'm a person that says thank you to everybody. So if you move and share the sidewalk to me, I'll say thank you. If you
Uh-huh.
hold on the side and let me pass first, I'll say thank you. I
Yeah.
will always, always say thank you. And she was with me and she was like, that's a trauma response. And I'm like, it is? And she was like, yeah, it's basically when somebody who's had sort of childhood trauma where they haven't been noticed, they end up being overly generous and overly sort of polite. And I was like, that's an interesting concept, but maybe we just don't do it enough.
Yeah, I don't agree with that. I mean, if she was here telling us about it, I'd listen intently and try to reflect in my own life. But I was thinking a couple of days ago, Haley, that one of the reasons that Ray's and my relationship has been healthy and happy for 46 years is that we say please and thank you throughout the day. I say thank you for everything, you know, anything anyone does, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank
And
you.
it's never
Yeah,
enough. Like today's a
right.
new day, and I
I don't,
still want to say thank you for giving me the time. Thank you for being with me. Thank you for sharing your expertise with me.
yeah.
Thank you
And
for opening the door.
yeah. And I thank the clouds, the billowing clouds at sunset when I'm walking the dog, and they're all orange and purple, in the
Oh,
distance,
beautiful.
puffy white. And I say, thank you. That is so
Just for
beautiful.
you.
Thank you so much. I'm just so grateful.
And so when does that become resentment? Because there are days too where I look up and I'm like, oh, that's beautiful, but I don't even have the energy to say thank you. And then I'm like, girl, you better say thank you.
Yeah. Resentment for me is generally about what's not fair.
Mm.
It's not fair. That's when I get resentful. That going back to the monkey I fought over the raisins with, it's not fair. I resented that monkey, and
So resentment is the monkey.
he resented me.
He was probably like human.
Yeah, let go of the damn box. But you're pretty strong for a 4-year-old.
I underestimated this one.
Yeah, I thought I was just gonna get it.
Do you ever feel resentment that you're always the one cooking, or is like from that perspective, like something that you love so much? Do you ever get to a point of resentment where you're like, I just wish somebody would make me a meal?
Absolutely, absolutely. You get tired. I think last night, I think it was last night, I served portobello hamburgers, no meat, but the portobello with sliced tomato and goat cheese and pesto. And
Oh my
um,
goodness.
Ray said, this is delicious. Uh, it was fun for me to hear that because I was making it up as I went along. What do I have? What do I have? And I was excited that it was a change of pace for us, because I don't usually cook like that. But Haley, there are many, many, many days that I just think I am so tired of cooking. And you've been here. As soon as I get up, I start.
Mhm.
My routine is that I get up, I say good morning, because Ray's usually already up. I spray my face with water to wake up and comb my hair and go out, and I give Brit his water, and then I start cooking because I want it done, right? So that in the afternoon, after my nap, I'm not sitting there thinking, well, what are we having for dinner?
Right.
You
It's
know,
just a matter of putting it together now.
yeah, yeah. And before I put it together, and I don't know if you did this, I do a quick scan of, well, what do you have? What are you working with here? Right? What's going to go if you don't do it? All those mushrooms ought to be cooked. All right, we're having something with mushrooms tonight. Could be a quiche, right? So no, I do. And I'll go to the grocery store sometimes, and I'll just look at the vegetables, and they're the same ones, and they're in the same place they were last time: carrots, celery, lettuce, beets, eggplant. All right, who's coming home with me tonight?
When I lived in New York, I feel like I cooked a lot more and there was a lot more variety in my diet just because you could buy so much.
Yeah.
You could get everything you wanted, whether it was from the US or another country or whichever food group it was, whatever culture it came from. Whereas here in Mexico, it's very bland, but it's not bland. So the
Oh,
traditional Mexican food is incredibly vibrant, but when you go to the store, it's just like exactly what you're talking about. It's the same, 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 same. And it's
rice and
like
beans and peppers.
rice and beans and peppers and platanos and
Yes,
you know,
plantain.
it's the same stuff. And I'm just like, well, if I'm gonna cook a taco, I'm going down the street to get a taco.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. If I was alone, I wouldn't. I don't think I would do too many, um, you know, time consuming.
Yeah, I used to
We're
be
having,
very good in New York. I used to do like Sunday meal prep, which would be like 3 or 4 days of food. And here I'm just like, nah, my meal prep is my smoothie.
Haley, do you get resentful of your clients ever?
I do. There's 1 or 2 clients that I sometimes get resentful of because I feel like they're taking advantage. And I feel like they're literally I'm giving an inch and they're taking a mile.
Give me an example.
Yeah.
I know we can't do anything that's real, but give me an example of how a person would do that. That
Well, one of the ways that I work is pay what you can.
okay.
And most people, 99% of my clients, are very conscious of that and do the best that they can. I can feel that energy exchange.
Uh-huh.
There are 1 or 2 few that they see that as I'm getting a good deal,
A bargain.
a
Uh-huh.
bargain. Yeah. And I can feel that. So for me, the resentment isn't what they're doing, it's the resentment of what I'm doing because I need to be putting in a boundary and saying, this is what we're doing.
Yeah.
So, not so much resentment at them. I get resentment at myself because of their actions. I feel like they're not respecting and seeing the privilege of the connection between us.
Uh-huh.
And I'm allowing them to continue.
Yeah. So what are you going to do about that?
Boundaries. So for those, I just have to put really hard boundaries in and saying, nope, nope, Nope. And it's difficult for me because the reason why I have pay what you can is money should never be a reason you don't talk to me.
Right.
I will always, always give my time if there's an emergency, and I don't expect to be paid for emergencies. But if you're doing that because you know it's a deal and everything is an emergency, that's when I'm like, we won't be working together anymore. We will only be working once a month. Anything
So
once a month is not happening.
Haley, do you have a set fee, that you say, this is my fee, all right? I don't ever want you to not be able to have from me what you need. So if money is a real issue for you, let's talk about it.
Yeah, so I have a base fee, and if you can pay that, fantastic. If you can't pay it, let's talk. So I have sort of baselines, and one of the things I learned is that I had to put in minimums because
Yeah,
people were like, oh, $20. And I'm like, I know that you're spending like $200 on dinner tonight.
yeah, yeah.
You can give me a little bit more than 20. So I had to put in a minimum there. So my minimum is around $100 for a
Uh-huh.
session. If you can't do that, then we can negotiate more, whether it's a half-hour session or I'm happy to take whatever you can.
Or I
Um,
can refer you.
or, a lot of the time it's just, I don't think now's the right time to work together. A lot of people have the money, regardless of the situation. People have the money. People always have money. It's the decision on where we spend that money.
Uh-huh.
And I think that if you are very focused and very clear on, I want to make myself better, you always have an opportunity to adjust your budget so that you can afford what you need to be better. And I
Right.
think it goes the same thing as coffee. If your coffee is really important and you're making the decision to spend $5 once or twice a day on coffee, then that's important to you.
Or having your teeth whitened, or
Yeah.
having, bags under your eyes cut. And, if we're willing to pay for all of that, then why isn't counseling
Yeah.
considered worth the person's? Yeah.
It is still, when we talk about resentment, it is still like a little thorn on my side
Uh-huh.
when people can't pay the full fee. And I know that they're buying Rolex watches and Cartier jewelry, and you know their kids are driving brand new Mercedes Benz, that kind of stuff. That to me is still a little bit of a thorn,
Oh
but
my God. It was if I had all that information and the person knew I knew it, how could they possibly say I really can't pay your fee?
well, I think one of the things that is happening in the US right now, a lot of people live by credit. They don't
Hmm.
live by cash. So a lot of what people are affording and what it looks like they have is all credit. They don't have a lot of cash.
But the guy who cuts our hair just said, no more credit cards. I'm just doing cash.
Yeah, I actually feel like, and I know a lot of people, and I've helped several people transition their businesses from credit or insurance to cash.
Hmm.
And I think it's a way that we're going now because A, it's expensive for anybody working with credit cards. And I think cash is what we need right now. Cash is
And
what
you
we
could,
need in the store.
and you can also do PayPal or Venmo or,
So
right?
yeah, I do PayPal. I accept PayPal, Venmo. I can accept credit cards, but again, very few of my clients sort of differentiate that this is okay for credit cards and this has to be cash.
Uh-huh.
So when they're spending money at like Cartier and all that kind of stuff, it's all on credit cards. They consider self-care cash. It's an
Huh.
interesting delineation.
Do you point that out to them?
Um, Only if it's necessary. So with some of my wonderful younger clients that are students and are learning for the first time about living on a budget and, having more than you need versus want, I have those conversations with them. With the more established, if the opportunity comes up and it's necessary to speak about it, I'll speak about it. But it's more of a sometimes I just leave it up to God and wait for the timing or wait for the lesson, because sometimes there's stuff there for me to learn too.
Okay. But I think it's okay at the next session to say, I think we've come to a point where we can stop this,
Yeah,
take a break.
absolutely. And I think that's one of the things that you have to do when you have your own business and you're in sort of this helping people, is that you have to be conscious of being able to say no to
Yeah.
people that do not value the time with you.
Yes.
And I've thankfully, the reason why I'm successful in investment banking is that I do have that in me to be able to be like, no, this doesn't make sense.
Okay, good.
Yeah. So that's where the boundaries come in, where I'm very much like, no, this is the only way I work. You have to figure it out. If you want to work with me, you've got to figure it out. And it goes the other way too, because I do have some clients that will just spend money with me. And I'm like, you don't need to be speaking to me every 2 days. So it's my responsibility there to be like, no, I can't just keep taking your money. You need to do some work.
And okay. I understand completely what you're saying, and I think it's a great example. Going back to our topic, Haley, when do you feel that you are most resentful on a regular basis?
Mm. When people are afraid of me.
When people are afraid of you?
Yeah,
Who's afraid of you?
people are afraid of me. There are people that are intimidated by me, and rather than trying to get to know me or ask me questions, they immediately feel intimidated and become fearful of me.
Are you
And
talking about people in town?
it's been people my entire life. So
Ah,
everywhere I go, there's going to be people that absolutely want to be around me, and then there's going to be people that are like, "You're evil." And
well, that's strong.
it's strong, and that is a zero to resentment in 60 seconds.
Uh, yeah, the ego certainly is resenting that person's response to this beautiful,
Yeah,
person.
like if you
Uh,
just got to know me, you'd see that I'm actually pretty normal. We
so
have a lot in common.
and you're wise enough to know that it's not about you, it's about them.
It's about them. Yeah, I
Yeah.
think I've learned enough about my energy now that it's okay that people don't understand and people are offended by it, intimidated by
Mhm.
it. It's certainly not for me to try and fix it and change my energy so that they're more comfortable.
That's right.
How
That's
about for
right.
you in the last 4 minutes? What is your greatest resentment trigger?
Being unappreciated, I think. Um, and that happens only when I get tired, I think.
Yeah,
You get tired and you think, I don't know that Ray knows all the stuff that I do. And then I think, well, are you aware of all the stuff that he does? And he does a huge amount, even if it's not physical stuff. Uh, so, or resentment that other people, you know, I sometimes, it's hard for me. I know our time is running out, but if I work on a meal, a really good meal, and we have people over and we sit down to eat and they start talking about Trump,
you're like a meal's done.
please, we all agree on this. Can we taste the food, please? Oh, you're right. Okay. oh, how this is very good. But did you know that when Trump,
Uh, these little tests, which at the end of the day come down to comedy because we just have to laugh.
you have to laugh or you're going to get resentful,
You
right?
really are. And you're going to get bitter and life is not going to be fun.
No, it's not going to be good.
Yeah.
All right, my
Well, my
friend.
love, I've had a wonderful chat with you. I think this is our
Okay.
last one, and I do need to send you an email about going forward for September because we'll be back on sort of a more regular cadence come September.
Good.
But
Well,
we'll be in touch.
we will be, and for
Lots of
what
love to you and Ray and
to you
Lincoln,
too,
and
and
we'll talk soon.
From Ray and Lincoln too.
Thank you so much.
Bye, dear.
Bye.